Carefully remove the fragments of silicon from where they have entered your feet.
All right. Welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. Joining me is, I'm your host, Adam. Joining me, as always, is your co-hosts, Petty and Galix.
Woo.
Yes, good show of enthusiasm there.
You know it. Only the best here at Fragments of Silicon.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make me get the electrodes.
That might be an improvement. Anyway.
I'm here. I just didn't have anything to say.
Except for that. And be that as it may, we still have to do a news segment.
Mm-hmm.
So, Petty, why don't you start us off this week?
So the Sub-Zero freeze seems to be gone for now. Yeah, it's not fun when it's, wind chills of 20 below and you have to worry about drain pipes freezing.
And exploding.
Yeah, luckily the drain is a lot harder for it to explode, but yes, we have had supply lines explode. Also not fun. Because whatever genius decided to build our house with the supply lines and exterior walls with very little insulation.
Oh, I thought you were going to say of straw.
Straw might actually be a better insulator.
Yeah.
Straw might actually be an improvement,
for thousands of years.
That's what I'm thinking. As far as like rest of news stuff, overall it's been a quiet-ish week. I went to get the new Digimon stuff this weekend and got most of the stuff for my Lunamon deck. Because Lunamon's finally in the Digimon card game. Hooray. And one of my boxes actually pulled the Lunamon alternate art, so yay! And today we had a yesterday was busy and then I had to go to the dentist and I had to get another root canal, which that's fun. Luckily this one didn't hurt as much. So they're gonna finish it in March, because right now it's just a temporary filling because there was an infection in there. So we got to get that cleared out and shit. And then today I had a follow-up with the eye doctor. So far my eye is doing a lot better.
A follow-up or a fallout?
Follow up.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Right now my eye is doing a lot better. The only thing is there's like a little scar that at least is healing. So they want me to come back in a year before I have my next glasses visit with my other optometrist, because if the scar is still there, they may need to do a surgery, which could mess up my prescription. So they want to see if that gets handled now, if handle that before I get my new glasses, or else I'm going to need to get new glasses again. And since insurance will only pay for that once every 2 years, we gotta, make sure everything's all hunky-dory first. And then, other than that, not a whole lot to report.
Okay.
So, next victim.
I mean, that's usually Galix.
Yep. Not a whole lot going on here. It snowed a little today, which is kind of a pain, but let's see. I got a box of the Digimon set late last week, I think. I don't know what I'm gonna build out of it, if anything. Unfortunately, this set is weird. I mean, it's an EX set, so that's expected. But
you're either building Sovereigns, or you're either building Sovereigns, Leomon, or Grayson Over if you're using that set.
Well, yeah, those are the good things in it, or the strong things in it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I guess there is support for the
it was
poop
really
deck.
weird. Yeah, opening it was weird because there were so many. Because it's Sovereign, so all 12 Devas are taking up slots.
Yep. All 12 Devas, the 4 Great Beasts.
Well,
and then
the Devas
Feng
particularly, because that means that in 4 colors there are a lot of relatively high level Digimon.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I didn't get enough like Lunamons or Coronamons or any of the other very few children or child levels in the set to actually build anything.
Yeah.
But I can always try and pick up some more. And I don't think I have anything else off the top of my head. I did get to finally do Pathfinder again this past weekend after having missed it for like or more. So that was nice. But I think that's about all I got.
Okay, I guess it's my go. Let's see. I suppose the biggest thing that was going on this week is I had to, how do I put this, deal with the bank a bit because they made a mistake. The rent deposit check.
Ooh.
That wasn't good. Well, it's like they thought the 6 was a 0. Thankfully, that got...
Hopefully not a leading 6.
Yeah. It got straightened out. And it was rather inconvenient. And also, a bit scary there for a bit. But anyway, that's taken care of. Let me see. Something was going on with my smart TV for a few days.
Fine.
Like it wasn't like everything was working up until it got to the actual data. Like it wasn't reading the data properly.
Like being streamed, or?
Yeah, like Disney Plus calls this a malformed data error. All the other services just,
general shit's fucked up. Fix it.
Well, it's the progress bar wouldn't go past 0%. Like, I'm not sure what happened there, but a full network reboot solved it, thankfully. So,
yeah, it generally does. It was probably just like a modem configuration error.
Possibly. It just means thankfully the TV like firmware didn't fuck up or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, so that's back to working. And temperatures are back to normal in my neck of the woods, i.e., it got to the 80s today. That's the usual thing of living in Florida.
Sounds unhealthy.
It beats dealing with the cold.
Yeah.
It's like my limbs aren't dogging me as much, let's say. Because because it's cold outside and the extremities need to shut off the blood flow.
Or you're like me and have neurological condition and just hate the cold because of it.
Well, I'm not sure if I suppose it is a neurological condition
Fair.
now. Well, I'm talking more about the neuropathy.
Yeah.
Diabetes is not fun.
No.
Anyway, so I think that's about it for my news for the week. So, merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And this week we are welcoming Rebecca Clark of Zoozle Zone.
Hi, glad to be here and thanks for the invitation.
No problem, no problem. Right. So, how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the games, the studios, and all that. And we do this by asking this particular question: what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Well, I've always loved playing games, and I've always loved science, and I got recruited into a PhD program to create an educational game, and what I did was modified Skyrim. So that got me started designing, and I realized I enjoyed designing the games better than I enjoyed playing them. So here I am.
Like, I got to admit, that's a bit of a jump in terms of career.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose I should quantify first. Have you made game development your full-time gig, or is it just something you do in your off hours?
Actually, it's full time. So it's kind of a convoluted story. I was a biochemist toxicologist working in a lab, lost our grant, got recruited into this program to make an educational game to teach science. And then I defended my dissertation on the 13th of March 2020, and COVID shut the economy down on the 16th, and I couldn't find a job. So I just kind of went for broke, literally, and started my own studio.
Welcome to the indie game circuit.
Correct. Like, you have to do it for love.
Yeah. We certainly encounter that a lot. The rewards are potentially few. But so going along that timeline, I'm assuming that your game here has been in development for about 3 years.
Yes and no. This one here is actually like a fifth iteration, and it's actually a complete remake. I didn't have a lot. I guess it's kind of common to this industry. You have imposter syndrome. So I really didn't feel like I could do a Steam quality game. So I started out doing educational games, and my first game was to teach the scientific method, and it was in a game environment, and the kids loved it. But education admin hated it because it didn't fit into, like, okay, well, how can I assess their learning? You don't have quizzes in here, and I can't do a standardized test in here, ABCD answers. So I just kept butting heads with academia because I feel like the power in games is thinking and problem solving and engagement. I don't think it should do what school does and just beat you over the head with a multiple choice test. So the kids just were like, we want you to do we just want to play. We just want to play the game. We love this game. So a 30-minute educational game was trashed, and I started Jackie's Wacky Adventure. So actually, Jackie was born November 27th, 2021. So what is that? About 2.5 years? 2 years?
Something like that.
I don't know. That's a date between 2020 or 2020 and 2023, so it kind of doesn't exist.
Like,
But yeah, about that.
Yeah, I really didn't intend for it to be a 2-year project. I felt I intended for this to be a short game. I've got a couple of games that I want to do that are much larger, but now I'm not knowing if I'm going to do them or not. Because this turned out to be is quite extensive. Todd Howard is kind of I just love Todd Howard and his focus on curiosity and open world exploration. He makes it look really easy, so I thought open world, hey, it's not that hard to do. The player can just go where they want to go, right? But no, that was a bad decision on my part, and it was really a nightmare. But anyway, it turned out to be an open world, and it's I would say if you play it to completion, it would probably take you about 50 hours or maybe a little more. So it turned out to be a big game.
that certainly sounds like it. If you're looking to Bethesda for inspiration, like, they certainly, if nothing else, generate the big world.
Right. Right. I love Skyrim. I mean, I got my PhD modding Skyrim. I mean, how awesome is that? Got my PhD playing games. Fallout 4 is another of my favorite, and Mass Effect. So, yeah, it's kind of bad when you're starting to try to fill those shoes. And of course, it's a 2D game, so it doesn't. But I just like that open world feel that Todd Howard accomplishes.
Well, that does beg the question because, Skyrim and all them games are huge, expansive 3D worlds, and yours is a top-down 2D affair, probably more reminiscent of, say, the older Zelda games.
Right.
So, how did you go about transposing that sense of wonder and, of such massive open worlds into this kind of space?
I think part of it might have been just from playing so many hours of games and just doing kind of trying to put into this game what I love, what I enjoy doing. But yeah, it's kind of strange that you say that because in my mind, I was thinking Skyrim when I was making this, but then there's a lot of shooting and everything in it. So it's more like Fallout 4, less role playing, more shooting. And then everybody that was playing it was like, wow, this reminds me of Zelda because you've got some puzzles and you've got the adventure and everything. So several people said, what this is a mashup between Skyrim and Zelda, and that's pretty awesome. So I would say it's maybe serendipitous, maybe a mistake, or it just happened to be this way. I don't know. I just hope it's not one of these things where it's just confusing and people, it's like nobody likes it because it's too different. I don't know.
It's hard to say. Like, especially since, how do I put this? Like, open world and Zelda, that's part of the Zelda equation, the overworld part. But, when people talk about Zelda, more, unless we're talking like, say, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, like a lot of the discourse goes into dungeon design and, all the intricacies that go into there, which is kind of the opposite of an open world format. Like, so I'm wondering, like, does your game have any sort of dungeoneering to it?
To tell you the truth, it's been quite a long time since I've played Zelda because I've only got a PC, so I don't know what the newer Zeldas are like. I played it long, long, long ago. I In saying that it's open world, it's just that I mean, like you can take the quests that you want to do, you can do them in the order that you want to do them. You can once you start getting into some open areas, if you hit M and open up your map, You can see where everything is, and then you can fast travel places. So you can do anything in any order that you want to, except for I've got a couple of gatekeepers in order to make the main quest line make sense, the main storyline make sense. As far as it being Zelda-like, it's got some puzzles to it, but nothing as extensive as Zelda. And it's not a dungeon crawler or anything like that. So I don't know if that's what you were asking.
Yeah, more or less. Or going. Skyrim has dungeons as well.
Right. I've got some mines, underground mine system in here that I've got hidden areas that are not on the map that are kind of hard to get to and puzzled type of areas. And I've got some mines in there that are more like a dungeon crawler type of feel. But the above ground stuff is just like Skyrim. You can go where you want to go when you want to go.
Now, does this game employ any sort of, like Skyrim has a system where if you go where you're not quote unquote supposed to go, you're going to face a whole bunch of hard foes. Is there anything like that in this game?
Sort of. Like I know, like Skyrim and Fallout 4 both, I've noticed if you get to a building or a dungeon or an area where you don't have the information or the quest that you need in order to be able to go in that area, there's a false wall there. So I've got some areas like that where it's walled off, but if you have the quest that you need to get in there, then it's got an open door. I've got some places that have locked doors where you have to find the key. And from Act 1 to Act 2, Act 1 is the biggest act, but then, like, you've got a lot of shooting and questing and kind of a humorous type of thing in the real world. I guess I should back up. So, my inspiration for this was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where you had the real world juxtaposed against a cartoon world. And that's what this is. You've got the real world. Now, right here, you're in Eureka, which is actually real scientists, Einstein, Herschel, who was a real scientist. And that kind of is remnants from the educational game. But this is the real world. And then she came from Toontown, and Toontown is the other world. And one of the three main quests is to solve a murder in Toontown, your hometown. So I don't want to do a spoiler, but there is a necessity that you have to do at least one thing in Toontown before you can go into Act 2 and it makes sense. So I have a gatekeeper that keeps you out. But that's probably the biggest obvious gatekeeper I've got. The other ones, you might go into an area and not really know that you can't get into a certain area. But if you go back and you've got the quest item, it'll be open.
I mean, that makes sense. And now you mentioned a murder mystery plot. Is this the kind of thing that you're going to have to do any sort of actual investigations, or is it just like talk to people and go here kind of deal?
Right. It's actually because I am a scientist and I do like, I think like Mass Effect really has some real science in there with Dr. Solus, so I've got some real science in here. I've got a lot of Easter eggs in here. And so the Toontown quest is quite extensive, and you can investigate and do search warrants, and you can make that into about a 2-hour quest if you want to. But for the people that don't want to do that, don't want a lot of story, don't want to read a lot of dialogue, I made it to where once you investigate the crime scene and get the very bare basics, you can just go ahead and guess and make an arrest, right or wrong. And then you can move on into Act 2 as you want to. But for the people that enjoy the story and enjoy talking to the NPCs and everything, then there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of story, a lot of side quests that you'll pick up doing that. And so I tried to just kind of be sensitive that not everybody wants to read a bunch of story.
Right. I could see that. Like, not everyone wants to, I suppose, play LA Noir.
Right.
Mm.
So I just tried to make it amenable to different play styles because now, like I've got two people that have played tested it that are exact opposites. One is very methodical, very linear thinking, wants to dot every I and cross every T, a completionist. So they go through it very linear, very methodically, kind of the way I designed it. But his brother, I just laugh every time Grayson plays it because he just runs through things, and he was running through a scene and everything was chasing him. He had like 5 zombies chasing him, and he was running through the lightning puzzle, and the lightning bolts were flying down through there. And he's like, "How do I get through here?" And I said, "Well, that's a maze." And he said it was inspired by a puzzle in Skyrim. And he said, "Well, how do I know how to navigate this maze?" And I said, "Well, you know that raven up at the top that you ran past and didn't talk to?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, if you'd talked to him, he would have told you." But it just tickled me because I was like, "How did you get 5 people chasing you at one time?" And he didn't. When I was play testing it, and when Henry play tested it, he's like, go to one area. If a monster hops up and starts chasing you, you kill that monster, right? Then you go to the next area, and a monster hops up and starts chasing you, and you kill that monster, but not Grayson. He just runs through. And so he just runs and dies and runs and dies and runs and dies, but he was having fun. So
I guess it's a valid strategy.
I guess. I mean, he didn't care. There is a severe death penalty, but he didn't realize it. Because you get to keep the level that you're at, and you get to keep all of your loot. So I think he did not really realize that there's a point system that is a pretty severe death penalty. And I don't think he got that in the short time that he had played it. So,
Well, I mean, I suppose we can explore that a bit. What is the penalty system in this game?
okay. So, if you die, you get to keep everything that you've got. If there's a belt system now in ninjas, there's really only white and black belts, but I've taken some liberties because I needed more levels than that. So I've got like 8 or 9 belts, something like that. So you have to each enemy that you kill has a point system, and you have a score. And so when you hit a certain threshold, you will level up to your next belt. So from white to yellow. If you die, your score goes back to 0. And so if you were, say, like if the first belt is at 500 for yellow and you were at 499 and you die, it starts back over at 0 for you to level up.
Hmm.
But I've got other things in the game that you can complete quests and everything and get extra health and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of make up for that. But
it's just one facet of the combat system then.
Correct. It's just one facet of the combat system, kind of beat your best score type of mentality. If you want the belts for bragging rights, if you want to make black belt, is pretty hard to get it. Actually, if you don't take time, I'm trying to make the potions worth using. So it's worth crafting the potions. It's worth taking time to use the potions, and instead of just running through it and not having any kind of death penalty whatsoever. And the mouse wheel will increase her running. See, you've got your current score and your max score. If you die, your current score will go to 0, and you have to start back over trying to get to your next level.
Okay. And the potion system, how does the crafting work?
Okay, you can you can collect plants. When there's cherries on the trees and stuff like that, you collect plants, and get loot and various crystals and stuff like that. Now you can pay Wiley to use his chemistry bench, or when you go on this quest, and there's 2 different ways that you can get a key to the chemistry lab, and then you can use that chemistry lab. That's your chemistry lab, and you can use it for free anytime you fast travel back to Eureka. You can use it. So you just go in and you mix the potions, and then the potions you use them, they're applied to your shuriken via the hotkeys, or 1 and 2 is your health potions to restore your health, or the rest of them are the hotkeys to make the shuriken act differently, either fire or ice or poison. But all the boss enemies, most of the boss enemies in here have a bit of a puzzle to them, a trick to them. So your health is low, so you can hit the one key and restore your health if you've got potions. Yeah.
And
that gate down there goes to another level. So there's I think 4 different exits from Eureka to go into different places on the map. And then once you've visited a place, if it's above ground, you can then fast travel back to it. And I've got to redo the art on Newton there. He's just a programmer's art. He's got to be replaced.
Oops. Something for the next patch.
Right. A lot of this was programmer's art, and I've taken some art courses and tried to do better with some of it. So I've started replacing some of my NPCs as I can. But I haven't gotten around to replacing Newton or Herschel or Einstein. They were originals.
Now, were you the sole primary developer on this game?
I am the sole developer, yes.
Not too surprising given what you've told us here so far. But you had people help you with playtesting and the music. Anything else that you had an assist with?
Oh yeah, now I did. That's kind of a funny story with the music. Like most programmers, I'm program centric. I enjoy doing the programming. It's kind of like doing puzzles for me. I enjoy doing the game design. I sucked at art, and I was even worse at music. I'm so tone deaf. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So I had, when the game was an educational game and it was about 20 minutes long, I was using a free 30-second, one of those 8-bit, very retro pinball type annoying things. And every time I would work on the game, my border collies would not only leave the room, they would leave the house and go out in the yard. And so I got to where I was just deving the game with the sound off, which is what a lot of game devs, I understand, make that mistake of doing. And then I realized as the game got longer, I needed to do something. So I was really blessed to meet Charles. I think you interviewed him, last week? Charles Wolf?
Yes.
And he did the music for this. And I mean, he is so amazing. I just can't say enough about him, because I was like, I like Metallica, but I think that's probably going to overwhelm this game. It's cartoony, so Metallica doesn't really fit. And I said, I don't even know enough about music to know what to ask you to do. But man, he nailed it. He nailed it. And I love the Toontown music. I think is even my favorite. But he's just an amazing guy to work with. So yes, he helped me out a lot. Then my 2 major bosses, and I'm not going to do a spoiler alert or anything here, but my 2 major bosses, I wanted them to be very special, and there was kind of some game mechanics that I was having trouble getting across. So I found Jalen Askins, and he did some voiceover work for me for my 2 major bosses, and it turned out really amazing. So the finale, I'm really proud of the finale. And then a friend of mine from college, Lorraine Lynn, did my cover art with she did the Jackie character, and there's a prophecy quest line where Jackie was born under the blood wolf moon, hence I'm launching under the wolf moon tonight. And she did the artwork with Jackie and the blood wolf moon and the hint of the castle up in the clouds where the finale occurs, way up in these icy mountains at Chilgrave Keep. So she did a fantastic job on the artwork and the character. So
Right. So it's probably a good idea to step away from the more developmental aspects of Jackie's Wacky Adventure and talk about the game itself, as in, who is Jackie? Why is she a ninja fox? What is she doing here? And all of that sort of business.
okay, some story, the fun part. So Jackie she was born in Toontown, and kind of going along with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, her brother was killed when somebody dropped a piano on him. And so she left and came to Eureka to go to university to become a CSI so that she could avenge her brother's murder. And so she's kind of given up on avenging her brother's murder. She's seen too much blood and violence in her life, so she's retired to her forest home in Vinvista. And then a messenger arrives and tells her that there's been another murder. So that's one main quest line, is the murder in Toontown. So you go back to Toontown and you go through this investigation type thing and you solve that murder. Along the way, you come across the second main quest line, which has to do with the Radiance prophecies. And so it's kind of inspired with the Harry Potter thing. You've got this arch nemesis, and the prophecy says that, this ancient evil comes into play. They're bent on destroying Harmony Haven and Toontown. And the one born under the Blood Wolf Moon, who happens to be Jackie, is the one that has to go up against this evil and save both worlds. But Jackie's a scientist, so she doesn't believe in all this superstitious mumbo jumbo. So she doesn't believe in destiny, but she'll soon be forced to.
And did you find coming up with story and characters to be a difficult task?
Oh, yes. The story I'd been playing around with for probably 3 years. And it's when you have a game like this and you don't have facial expressions, one of the surprising things that I ran into was like, holy cow, how do I relay a personality just by text on these characters? So what I ended up doing, Jackie's kind of me. She's a scientist, and all of that. So she was kind of easy. But the other characters, I pretty much tried to have somebody in mind when I wrote them. So Jessica Bunny in Toontown, I had Willow in Buffy the Vampire Slayer in mind, and Harmony, the hamster in Toontown, I had Harmony in Buffy the Vampire Slayer in mind when I wrote them. Mackenzie Monkey was probably my favorite one writing, and he's just a monkey. I mean, he lies and he pulls tricks on people, and I really don't know if I had anybody in mind for him. But I've got a pirate in here that I had in mind, Johnny Depp, when I wrote him. And I've got a cameo appearance of Todd Howard in the game somewhere. And then some of the characters are based on my friends. Like I've got a really big quest line coming out of Toontown that is based on one of my friend's sons who's in a robotics club, Metal in Motion. So they dress up in this kind of almost like Kiss and this rocker boy type of vibe and go to these robotics contest. And so I did a quest line with Grayson in mind. So that kind of thing. So but it's really, 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 really shockingly difficult to get different personalities across just by written text.
No doubt. You know, there are ways of expressing, but it's different than, facial expressions.
Right.
So,
I mean,
anyway.
I was really shocked. I was like, wow, I didn't really think about how much emotion is actually portrayed by your facial expressions, and I don't know if I've pulled it off or not. I mean, nobody has really played it extensively to say, oh yeah, there's a different personality here and a different personality here. Although the pirate that I drew, everybody that's seen him said, oh my gosh, that looks like Johnny Depp. So I guess I pulled that one off. I don't know.
And I noticed there was a credit for voices. How much of the game is voiced?
That only my two big bosses are voiced, and it's in Act 3 before you ever get to anybody that's voiced. But if you listen to the voices on the narration on the trailer and I don't know if you saw the little 30-second clip that was a finale teaser that's in the blue type of color palette. It's up north in the icy dungeons. That is my big Uber boss and voiced by Jalen Askins. He makes a great villain.
And let me see here. Right, so this game is coming out tomorrow, if I'm remembering correctly.
I'm going to launch it tonight as soon as we get off. I think the full moon rises tonight, right? I don't know. Tonight or tomorrow night. I'm just going to go ahead. We're scheduled for really horrendous thunderstorms all day long tomorrow, and I'm afraid I'm going to lose power. So when we get off of this interview, I'm probably going to go ahead and hit the launch button.
Okay. So that does beg the question, how are you feeling about this project finally getting released out into the big wide world of Steam?
Well, I tell you, Steam, their documentation is, I would say it would be given, it's a nightmare. That's what I've been doing all week. I really made a lot of mistakes with this game. I should have started with Steam way earlier. I should have started marketing from day one. I haven't done any marketing. I suck at social media. I have lived this game for the last year. I've had no time to do anything else. So I'm not feeling real good about a successful launch because I just have had no marketing on it whatsoever. The Steam achievements, everything that I have play tested, spot tested, the Steam achievements seem to be working except for the chemistry bench. And I think it's because when you do the chemistry bench, you can just, hit the button really fast, like make a potion really fast. And I think it doesn't have time to do the callbacks to Steam. So I've got to rework that tomorrow, but I think that's a real minor thing. I've gone through and spot checked it and collected 5 or 6 badges. So I feel pretty comfortable as far as that the game's going to work. I found it's a huge game, so it's really impossible. I know there'll be bugs. It's a huge game. It's impossible for me to check everything, and I tend to play it the way I designed it. And when somebody like Grayson broke it within 5 minutes when he played it, he just, he found cheats. I've got worms in here that pop up and shoot you, and that's supposed to be the challenge, is that they pop up when you're in range for them to fight back, and then they pop down and you have to wait for them to pop back up before you can fight them. And he found a cheat, he found a sweet spot and just stood off and picked them off, but I got that fixed.
Mm.
But there'll be things like that, I'm sure there'll be things I have to fix.
Yeah, probably. Right. So, how much is this game going to cost at retail?
I think I've got it at $24.95, and of course, when it launches tonight, it'll have a 20% launch discount.
Okay.
I had a hard time trying to figure out a price spot for it, but since it ended up being, like I said, I think if you play it to completion, it's probably going to be 50, 60, 70 hours, depending upon how much you do, how much time you spend reading the story and stuff like that. So from everything I read, $24.95 was a pretty good starting point. That's just kind of throw a dart to a dartboard.
Well, hopefully it works out. Right. So we are getting low on time here. So I'll see if my colleagues here have anything further to ask at this point in time.
I think I'm good.
Galix?
He's probably muted.
No, if he's being quiet for this long, he probably stepped away. But be that as it may, we have come to the end of the interview. So, Rebecca, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today to talk about your game.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Right. So the game is Jackie's Wacky Adventure. It will be going live after this broadcast. So if you haven't been watching live, if you've been catching the replay or on YouTube, whatever, it's going to be active by that point. It's going to retail for $24.99 with a 20% discount. How much does that equate to in actual USD?
I don't know.
Well, it's a 20% discount. So be sure to check it out today. Anyway, Petty, play us to the next segment. Okay, welcome to the topic of discussion. So this week we are talking about Super Smash Brothers. Specifically, Super Smash Brothers for the Nintendo 64. Mainly because this game has turned 25 years old.
That's a big age.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're finally back.
Sorry, I had to talk to my dad about something.
It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, so I personally did not own Super Smash Brothers. I did rent it quite a bit.
I was about to say Smash, especially if you had a 64, was probably definitely at minimum a rent.
I didn't own it, but I had a friend who did, who brought it over a lot.
Yeah. I'm like, Smash Brothers is one of the quintessential N64 multiplayer games.
Mm-hmm.
It's right up there with Mario Party and Mario Kart.
Yeah, I didn't have it.
I mean, it was kind of mind-blowing at the time.
Well, yeah, it's kind of because it was the birth of a brand new kind of fighter. Mm-hmm. Super Smash Brothers literally invented the platform fighter genre. Mm-hmm. Mainly because what the
platform fighter or mascot fighter, depending what you want to call it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, apparently we're officially calling them platform fighters because SpongeBob said so.
All right then.
Like, I mean, technically it was the voiceover narration for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, but it works out well enough.
Yeah.
Like,
I've definitely heard worse descriptors for video game genres.
I mean, they're still trying to rework that Metroidvania signifier.
Yep.
Well, the problem with Metroidvania is that problem, quote unquote, I mean, it's still going to stick pretty well, is that it does technically contain parts of two franchises that certain people might not have licenses to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware of that, but, just because, once again, just because you voice search action upon the world doesn't mean that it's going to take beyond your particular circle. Like, anyway, Super Smash Brothers created, what we call the platform fighter. It's also been called the mascot fighter, which is a perfectly good signifier for the genre.
Indeed.
It's like, because how do I put this? The fighting game community of the time did not like Smash Brothers.
Oh yeah, if you tried to pitch Smash as a fighting game, those were fighting words.
Many of them still don't and get offended if you talk about it as a fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. Well, here's the thing. That's a lot more.
It's cool since it's been at Evo now, but it's still contentious topic.
Well, also the most recent one, particularly, and like the one before that, I guess, are
Melee.
better at being an actual fighting game.
Melee is the one that really solidified Super Smash Brothers credentials as a tournament fighter.
I'm not sure if I can accept that when half of the things that the competitive scene loves is like not intended mechanics.
I mean, fair, but at the same time, Smash Bros. Brawl has intentional tripping, so.
Yeah, I know. I liked Brawl, so what do I know? But then I also barely played Melee, and I hated the high gravity and the fact that they nerfed Kirby into the ground.
I'm like, right, that's a little beyond what we're talking about here. Like, because, Super Smash Brothers, wasn't a traditional fighting game. It's the literal antithesis, especially like Super Smash Brothers for the 64.
Yeah, for all that it was very revolutionary to have all of your characters from multiple franchises in the same game beating crap out of each other with a cute kind of toyish aesthetic. It was really rudimentary even compared to even Melee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is the word I would use to describe 64 basic. Because, your roster is, even for the time, pretty dinky.
What was it?
You have
12 fighters?
Yes.
Yes, 8 with 4 unlockables.
Yeah, I was like, I'm mathing it out in my head. Like, yeah, no, there was 12 because you had to unlock some.
Yeah.
That's why the Best Buy or not Best Buy, Blockbuster carts were so sought after because most of the time everything was already unlocked for you.
Most of the things weren't super hard to unlock, but I think one of them was like beat the single player mode without losing.
Like, I know.
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
The hidden characters were the just about the only thing to unlock in the game outside of, I think there was also one bonus stage.
Yeah, there was an unlockable stage too, the Mushroom Kingdom 2 or whatever.
Yeah, the classic Mushroom Kingdom, if I'm remembering correctly.
The one with the seesaw platforms.
Like, point is, like, even compared to Melee, that is an infinitesimal amount of content to get unlocked. And once again, it was running counter to what we were seeing in other fighting games. I mean, keep in mind, Super Smash Brothers came out the same year, about the same time as Soul Calibur for the Dreamcast. And let me tell you, there was a lot to unlock in that game.
Oh yeah. The early
2000s
is definitely the time where you still had unlockables in fighting games, and you had a lot of times they had to be earned. It's not like you could just huck $5 at Nintendo and they'd unlock everything for you.
Yeah, you have to actually beat the game fast to unlock Captain Falcon, but there was much more to it in other games that had more unlockables. And even, like, again, even later characters in the series have way more to unlock for later games in the series.
Well, kind of like with, I remember with Melee, one of my local Best Buys actually had where you could put down some extra money and get a memory card with all the characters unlocked. So, and they called it a party pack type thing because, everybody could play their character.
Did they make you put down a deposit?
It was either you put down a deposit or you brought your own memory card in and copied it over.
Like, gotta admit, I never saw that at my local rental stores.
Some of them, there were some places that did it. A lot of the smaller ones did it just because,
Right.
And, they had like a memory card locked in the back that had the master saves on it. And then, you just bring it in. They'll copy the save over.
This is not an official deal, but if you don't tell Nintendo, we won't.
Yeah, it would probably be very frowned upon by, Nintendo nowadays. But, you're talking like 12-year-olds having a birthday party. They want to play Smash.
Well, they did actually. That's an interesting thing in the later games is they did also, starting, I think, with Brawl. I know in 4 and Ultimate, they have a very party-friendly way in that you can unlock everything just by playing a big enough number of multiplayer matches.
Ultimate, everybody's unlocked.
Huh?
If I remember,
no, Ultimate starts you with 8.
Oh right, yeah. I totally forgot about that.
But you'll also unlock someone like every time you go through the single player mode.
Yeah, it makes
until you're until you get everything.
I thought that was for Wii U.
Huh. Anyway,
I remember that distinctly being part of the "everyone is here" thing.
Anyway,
yeah, focus here. We're not talking about those. We're talking about 64. Like, once again, 64 doesn't have like the advanced mechanics of later Smash Brothers game, but it's even if you go back to the beginning, it still has the core. That is it's got the special moves that you do by very simple.
Yeah, it's a very simplistic moveset, especially for fighting games of the time. Even some now, it's still a very simple moveset.
And it's even simpler than the other ones because the first game has up and down, and I think it might have side smashes, but it only has up and down specials.
Right.
It does still have the difference between tilts and smashes.
Yeah, and it has the shield, and it has the dodge roll.
I don't even think you can tilt the shield in the first one, can you?
No, I don't think so. Maybe. No. It might tilt a bit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a Melee thing.
Yeah.
If you do, it doesn't do much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, once again, like, Nintendo, HAL, Sakurai, they were not looking to do a traditional fighter. They were, it's very much embedded in the whole ethos of many Nintendo 64 games. This is a game that you bring over to your friend's place, have like a pizza party or what have you, depending on the age. Like, and you got 4 people there, and you have a good time.
You pass out your Mad Cat controllers to the buddies. You use your official N64 controller.
Of course. Like,
we all know how this works.
Oh yeah, I did that. And another thing that's not just set off the fighting game community, but even within the Smash community, they're not liked, and that's the item.
Yep.
And the thing is, like, the items were, especially in 64, a big selling point.
Mm-hmm.
Because once again, it's part of the crossover appeal. It's the zesty sauce, if you will. It's not just look, we have Mario. Look, we have the Mushroom Kingdom. We even brought back his iconic hammer from Donkey Kong, and it acts like it did in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's another thing. The items being a whole separate set of references than the characters is also an interesting choice, especially since some of the references that they were making were things that were, shall we say, popular on the N64, but not necessarily owned by Nintendo.
I'm trying to remember if that was N6. I think the proximity.
The remote mine is absolutely a GoldenEye remote mine. It is the same graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
it was just after the HAL acquisition. That's why the thing says top secret, or not HAL. Rare.
Yeah, it's I think the proximity mine in Melee is Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Smash Brothers has always been doing the remember this deal, even back in its original incarnation.
Well, I mean, the choices of fighters in the original Smash Brothers was about 85%. Oh yeah, that's a Nintendo staple, and then like 15% NES Who.
Yeah.
Well, NES is really the only outlier in the 99 rendition.
Yeah.
Captain Falcon's also slightly obscure insofar as, the F-Zero guy, I didn't really think about what he looked like outside of his car.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I'm not going to fully agree with that. Because F-Zero was an active franchise when Super Smash Bros. For the 64 came out.
It was, but you didn't really see him outside of his car in game. You had to either own the manual or the box or something outside of the game to actually see what he looked like.
This is true, but that also gets to the curious case of Captain Falcon and Smash Brothers. Because Captain Falcon got defined in Smash Brothers.
He had an appearance before that, but his ability, and I think a brief backstory, but his ability to Falco Punch is entirely new.
Yeah.
Right. And that Falcon Punch, appeared in, for example, the F-Zero anime that happened.
Mm-hmm. And then the anime came out after Smash?
Yeah.
That came out in 2004.
Yeah.
The F-Zero Grand Prix game that came out for the Game Boy Advance is based off of that. The last F-Zero game that ever came out internationally. Not the last F-Zero game. That's another F-Zero game that came out in Japan only.
Mhm.
My point is, Captain Falcon got defined by Super Smash Brothers because, yeah, in the F-Zero games, he's, for all intents and purposes, he's just a car. He's the Blue Falcon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now you did get
And,
to see
and if you choose his player 4 color, he's the Blood Falcon.
But my point is, like, he's not, he wasn't so much obscure because, once again, F-Zero X had come out just a year before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was just massively undefined.
I guess it's more of a weird fighting game choice rather than, like, this is a really obscure character. Similarly, you knew Fox's face, but he'd never really been seen outside of a ship before.
Right, but nothing that Fox does is outside of the keeping of Star Fox, let's say. Like, all of his movesets make sense. Like, he pulls out a laser pistol.
Mhm.
That's not, where the fuck did the Falcon Punch come from?
I mean,
in terms
Fox does also have a flaming flying tackle thing, but...
Right. But you get what I'm talking about here. It's like the Falcon Punch is kind of nonsensical for the F-Zero world.
Mhm.
Like, but it's like otherwise, yeah. Everyone else who's showing up, like, honestly, Samus was probably at her most obscure when she showed up in Smash Brothers. Because keep in mind, we're talking about 1998, 1999.
Super Metroid was a pretty big deal on the NES, or on the SNES, at least in the US, but...
Well, it's like we're like 5 years or so from Super Metroid.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah. I'm like, Samus has made no appearances on the 64. Like, and Metro, the Metroid Prime, Metroid Fusion isn't until 2002. So, if there was ever a term, a time where Samus is a big old question mark for the general audience, it's here. But that also shows that, even in this, not so much exiled state, it's basically they couldn't figure out how to do Samus in 3D on the 64.
Right.
It's like the Nintendo people have said as much. It's one of the reasons why eventually Metroid got turned over to Retro. Like, but the rest of the roster, Mario, Link, Fox, once again, Fox, Star Fox, probably at the height of its popularity by the around the time of Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah, Star Fox 64 was like recent, wasn't it?
Wasn't it a
2
launch
years
title?
old at that point.
Yeah.
No, 1997. It came out in the summer of 19.
Oh yeah.
It was kind of like one of the big second wave.
That's right.
Point is, Star Fox is still a big deal at this point, as opposed to now where it's like Star Fox, what's that? Or, Star
Fox. They
Oh.
had a hit on the N64 and then couldn't figure out how to follow it up.
Well, it's more Nintendo kept trying to follow it up with stuff that wasn't Star Fox.
So do we need to talk about Star Fox Adventures? Because I don't have enough alcohol in me to talk about Star Fox Adventures, bro.
No, that ain't the bad. No, that ain't the bad one of those. Star Fox Assault.
Oh god, that too.
Yeah, Star Fox Assault was better and worse, but we don't have the bandwidth to get into that right now. Like, anyway, and the rest of the roster goes down. fucking Pokemon, Pikachu and Jigglypuff, who are
Don't forget
like
about
the
Yoshi.
biggest Pokemon, even at that point in time. Like I said, Ness is the only really obscure pick. I'm assuming that was done as a favor to Shigeshi Toy, or because somebody, possibly Sakurai, was a big fan of Earthbound. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that actually had a lore update, believe it or not, because Ness uses like PK Fire and PK Thunder, and he does not do that in Earthbound. And it says specifically in the character bio that Paula taught him that.
Yeah.
The things you remember. Anyway, we should probably wrap up this conversation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon, and indeed coming up on the week ahead. So, as previously mentioned, we did have a Friday show scheduled, but the guest has canceled out. We're hoping to reconvene that in March. It's kind of on him. I did not know how severe the illness was. He just mentioned that he was been sick, like not how sick, how severe. So
Could be a
kind of
mild
erring on the side
flu.
of caution
Could
there.
be, the hospitalization
I'm like,
imminent. We don't know.
yeah. So just that's an abundance of caution thing. Anyway, coming up on the Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews of Hunter X, Codename T, Cards and Castles 2, Unstoppable, and Creeks. And we do have a new installment of Moonhawk Studios Presents happening. As far as we know, Max in a stable enough position to host and all that. So look for that on his channel. And until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.